I think there's a benefit of me looking like them, right, or speaking their language, of sharing some of those experiences, of sharing some of those cultural values, right? So they may feel a little bit more comfortable. It's the language barrier, right? They don't have to feel like they can't really communicate and say how they feel with me, because I do understand who they are, where they're from, where they're coming from, and they can just be themselves.
Thank you for tuning back into another episode of Reach for Wellness. This is the show where we talk about how individuals are doing in their wellness journey and how we can improve our own individual journeys as well. I'm your host, Vanessa Alarcon, and I'm an outpatient program manager here at Community Reach Center. Today, we are celebrating National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'm excited to have Derick Ruiz. Derick is a social worker in outpatient services and is a therapist, and I'm very excited to have him here. Derick, welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so tell us, what exactly do you do at Community Reach Center?
I am a bilingual therapist with Community Reach Center.
Yeah, like in your day-to-day life, is it therapy all day, every day?
It's therapy all day, every day.
Yeah. Well, and that's a role I have had most of my time here at Community Reach, and it's a very meaningful role.
It is. I actually get to meet a lot of the community, and my role involves talking to a lot of Spanish-speaking folks, which, because I am Spanish-speaking, I feel they feel a lot more comfortable in speaking to someone that speaks their language.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's been great is Community Reach Center has strategically, historically hired bilingual therapists so we can meet those needs, which goes in line with what we're talking about today, National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. But first, we have something that you brought today. So I definitely want to highlight. Tell us, what did you bring?
So I brought you some cafecito.
Okay.
I brought you some coffee.
Yeah.
So where I'm from, my culture, when we want to connect with folks, we usually, invite them over for a little coffee. So this is me saying, Vanessa, thank you for having me, and let's chat, let's connect over some coffee.
Yeah, no, I love that. Thanks so much. And it's been like a while since we've had any sort of like little hot drink or beverage.
Yeah.
Cheers. Should we do a cheers?
Salud.
Cheers to mental health.
Cheers to mental health.
You have to drink when you eat cheers, Derick, too. All right, so let's talk about National Minority Mental Health Awareness. So this month really acknowledges mental health, but it also acknowledges the unique experience that individuals from underrepresented or minority groups have. So what is the difference? Like, what is the experience of someone that has that comes from a minority background?
I think there's a lot of myths about mental health in our community, right? The biggest one that I can think of is the one where if you seek mental health services, you are a loco or crazy, right? So I think that's a big barrier in our community, and challenging that, that myth that if you seek out mental health services, you are not a loco. You're just someone that is going through an experience in life where you might need a little bit of help. But I think, my experience here with some of the consumers that I have seen is, that fear of being labeled as a person who is crazy. So I think, that's definitely different. It's a big barrier in engaging with somebody who is from, Latino community. And there's also, the barrier of having, the finances to pay for, mental health services. Some think it's very expensive. However, there are ways that you can access those services if needed for our community. And I think it's very important for our community to know that, hey, you can access those services, and that two, that you are not a crazy person for seeking out services, mental health services. So that's a big barrier, and I think that's something that in my career, in my personal life, it's something that I had to challenge myself, seeking mental health services myself. I am not crazy. It is something normal, something that people go through, anxiety, depression, and at this time, I may need a little bit of extra help, and that does not make me crazy.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you mentioning the cultural piece because that's what makes this month, it just adds that additional layer where, in May we celebrate Mental Health Awareness Month, which absolutely touches on like destigmatizing mental health and encouraging people to get help. That there's this added cultural piece that always exists, but is highlighted even more because minority groups or cultural groups really do have shared values. So you've mentioned the Latino community, and I'm curious to hear more from you. Like, what are some cultural values of the community?
Yeah, family is very important. I think that's the first one that I can think of. We are very connected with our families, right? That respect towards our elders is big. And again, just I think education is a big part of our community. How do we better ourselves? And because of it, sometimes I feel in my own personal experience has been that when you do feel down, when you do feel a little bit depressed, when you do feel like you're not going through a good time in your life, you have to kind of just push through it. You just can't slow down because you feel sad, right? Or because you feel a little bit anxious, because you have so many people depending on you. You have, dad, you have mom, you have brothers, you have sisters, you have uncles, people that look up to you, right? And sometimes, that kind of makes it difficult for us to seek mental health services, to slow down and say, hey, there's something going on. I need help, right? Because you would not be accepted in our community.
And as I heard you say that, it made me think about how there are cultural components and cultural values that are good things. All cultural has is good, and there also can be elements that sometimes can be a barrier. Not saying that cultural element is bad, but it does incorporate into some sort of barrier. And so what I heard you just mention is you identified the family piece and said, here's how it's helpful, and then here's also some ways where it can get in the way.
It does get in the way at times. And I think, the struggle that a lot of us face is how do I, navigate both things, right? Seeking help for myself, but also, accepting that, that piece where, family comes first at times, right? But also, how do I meet my own needs, because I am first as well. I matter. But family matters as well, so.
Yeah, and putting all of that together in one. So you've alluded to your own social identity, your cultural, and in this episode, in this show, we like to ask people about how they reach for wellness. And so I want to pause here because you've talked about different values and different elements, but how have you reached for your own wellness and your own journey?
Yeah. I think first recognizing, that there are times that I am going to need help, right? And to me, that was, something that it was a struggle initially, right? Because as a person of color, as a male, right, you're expected to always, in a way, be well, right? You can't, again, I allude to the, go back to saying, you can't slow down, right? You always have to kind of push through it. So for me, it was recognizing the fact that, hey, I need help. I'm not feeling okay today. I need someone to talk to. And that could look, for me, it looked in different ways. Talk to my friend, talk to my dad, and then eventually, talk to a professional. So with me, it's about, hey, slowing down, saying, hey, I need to, take a time out, take a minute, take 30 minutes to just slow down, be centered, be present, and focus on something that brings me joy. And for me, it could be reading. For me, it could be, watching a good show, listening to a good song. And it doesn't mean that I have to do it, just at home. It could be when I'm driving home, I could be listening to a good song and I can sing. And that's the time that I get for me to kind of just let go of all the stress that I have in my life.
What are some good go-to jams?
Oh, man. I have so many. Bad Bunny is a big one right now. But I also listen to a different genre. I mean, I like bachata. I like merengue, and if you see me on the road, you'll see me at times that I am dancing, and sometimes
In the
people
car?
in
Like,
the car.
okay, so
Yeah,
you're navigating,
I
you're
gotta sing and dance
driving.
in the car. Traffic here in Denver at times gets pretty wild. So during those stop and goes, you'll see me that I'm just enjoying that time for myself. Listening to a podcast. I like to listen to new podcasts. Some are humor, others are just about what's going on in the world. But that keeps me present. It's my time for me to just work on me. So I really do enjoy those times for myself. So I always encourage people that I talk to just find that one thing that makes you happy. Find that one thing during the day that can block all the outside noise, right? And it's just that time for you.
What would you say to someone that is absolutely interested in investing in their mental health, but could feel discouraged for different reasons, and even maybe it has to do with messages that they're hearing from their cultural identity or cultural group?
I think one is just recognizing that you need help. Again, I go back to that, right? And then two, just again, seeking someone that you feel comfortable with. And I think with that takes a little bit of time, right? When you come into an office to talk to a therapist, there's that rapport building, there's that relationship building. And it takes a little bit of time to feel comfortable to talk about what's really going on with you. So I think, a lot of, I feel, there's a lot of misconception also about therapy, that you come in and all of a sudden you're going to feel great during the first session, or you're going to walk out and you're going to feel just like you can take on the world, right? I know, I like to tell my clients, hey, this is going to take a little effort. This is going to take a little time. Just like you're getting to know me, I'm getting to know you, right? It's a relationship that we're building. And the more comfortable you feel, I think the most able you are to address those underlying issues that you just talked about, right? Because you feel comfortable. And the only way you can talk about the way that you feel is by feeling comfortable. Just like the way I feel comfortable with you, Vanessa.
There you go. Yeah, we go way back
We
at
go
this
way back.
point.
We go way back.
So you're, like you said, you're a person of color, a male therapist. From your experience, have you found there to be a benefit from working with other people of color? Have you found that they've named the fact that they're like, oh, and not to say that others can't provide the same clinical service?
Definitely. I think there's a benefit of me looking like them, right? Or speaking their language, of sharing some of those experiences, of sharing some of those cultural values, right? So they may feel a little bit more comfortable. And also, it's the language barrier, right? They don't have to feel like they can't really communicate and say how they feel with me, because I do understand who they are, where they're from, where they're coming from. And they can just be themselves again.
Yeah. Well, and to what you're saying too, there can be such value, such connection, something special. And also, I usually tell people, and don't feel discouraged if you're looking for a therapist and you're like, okay, I want them to be this, or even just one thing, right? Because someone's needing support, and that, we can all help, but it does have an advantage when you're able to have more similarities.
And this is also, there's a benefit in being different, right? We all have different experiences, right? And we can learn from each other. And usually that's also, I'm constantly learning from my consumers, from my clients. Just because I'm the same color or speak the same language doesn't mean that I can't learn from who they are, from their own experiences. So I truly enjoy that, part of, being a therapist. It's that constant learning with new consumers that come in regardless of where they're from.
Yeah. Well, I'll close by asking you this question. You've talked about people starting therapy. Break it down for us. What is therapy actually like?
Oh, man. I can tell you that therapy can be scary for some, because you're in there and it's about being vulnerable, right? But also, as it can be scary, I think, that's part of growing as an individual, to be vulnerable. At times, we put up this shield and don't want the outside world to see how we really feel. and this is the time for you to be who you are. If you're feeling afraid, it's okay to be there and shed a tear and cry. If you're feeling, like things are going great, things aren't working, you talk to your therapist and they said, to try something at home and it works, you come back and say, hey, that was amazing. Or you can come back and say, hey, that didn't work for me. Can we try something else? But again, I think it starts with that relationship between you and your therapist to say, and be comfortable enough to say, hey, that worked, that didn't work, can we try something else? So that communication piece is very important. And I always like to tell, my consumers is, hey, you kind of dictate where we go from here, right? We're here for you. I'm working for you. So tell me what it is that you want and how we can get there. And I will help you get there, but it's going to take a little bit of time. It doesn't happen from one day to the other. It takes time and effort. And them being here, and I like to say, hey, you're being here, that's the first step, right? To feeling better, to feeling like you're going to achieve the goal that you want.
Yeah. And to express emotions and to get to just really find what that person's looking for. Yeah. And we'll absolutely help someone in their wellness journey as we're there for them. So, and that's what you're doing all day, every day. Yeah. So thank you so much for all you do. And another thing I wanted to mention too, to what you just said about when people are asking for support or starting that conversation where it requires vulnerability, there's also such a vulnerability that comes from the provider end as well, right? Because we're really there to serve the community, and so we're just as equally as interested in listening and learning about all the cultural elements that play into our own mental health journey, because they are so important.
They are, yeah. We have to, be open to see that not everybody has their same worldviews, right? They're all different, and accepting them and being okay with them. And I think going back, it's normalizing, with some folks, they've had the message that, I myself, growing up when I was young, had the message of, men don't cry, right? So for so long, people that receive this message, or I myself, would, just try to keep things in, because men don't cry, right? That shows weakness. That's, that makes me vulnerable. And I think it's normalizing the fact that, hey, if you feel sad, it's okay to cry. It's okay. You're not being judged. We all cry. So I think there's a lot of that conversation that I have with my male consumers as to it's okay to say I need help. It's okay if you feel like crying. No, you're not going to be judged in here.
I appreciate that. Well, thank you, Derick, once again, and for coming on. And I hope you come back another time.
Glad to be here.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Reach for Wellness. I hope to hear from you, and Community Reach Center would like to hear what resonated the most about this episode. So DM us at Community Reach Center. You can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and on social media. You can also find this episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and your favorite platforms as well. And so we encourage you to subscribe, share this episode, because it could definitely be a source of hope or inspiration for someone who's looking for encouragement to take that first step of vulnerability for mental health. Thanks again for listening, and we hope you tune in next time. Next time, we'll be talking with Adrienne Sines, a licensed professional counselor who will be giving us all the tips for back to school. We hope to see you then and talk to you next time.